measurements to your canvas. If you ever need to scale up or scale down your reference to your canvas, you can adjust this little orange piece right here. And so you can see right here, if I measure this size of my reference, I can blow it up to this size on my canvas. Now, I do recommend making your reference photo as close to the size that you're going to paint it as possible. You don't have to do this, but it just makes it a lot easier. You're looking at your canvas and your reference is the same size. Just being able to juggle your eyes back and forth, it's going to allow you to pick up on much subtler differences. You can even line it up and do sight size measuring. I see so many people wanting to paint from their phones or a laptop, and I understand. I've done it myself. It's super convenient. But every single time I've got students to actually print it out or put on a screen that is big enough and put it next to their canvas, they're always like, wow, this is so much easier. Now, I've printed out a full color version of this photo because I did it for a tutorial. Many times in the past, I would just print out a black and white version of the photo. I would even go in and adjust the contrast and brightness or whatever, make it be as much white on the page as possible to use the least amount of printer ink. At least for the initial drawing, that's all you really need. Because I'm only going to be getting a few key points using my proportional divider. I like to get from the top of the head to the bottom of the chin, and then from the top of the head to the eye line, and then from one side of the head to the corner of one of the eyes. Once I have those, I can kind of figure things out. Now, you can get as many points as you like, but just make sure you're not getting too detailed with your drawing. You only want to be mapping out the big shapes here. And as you get better at drawing, you'll need less and less measuring. Now, as I'm doing this initial drawing, I'm using a brush and thin paint to draw out my subject. You don't have to use thin paint. You can use charcoal if you like. I just like using the thin paint. I like drawing with the brush. So I'm trying to use straight lines when I draw. And as I'm looking at the head, I'm trying to see the outline of it as if it was constructed with straight lines. Because when you think in terms of straight lines, you're going to see the correct angle. And it's much easier to copy a straight line correctly opposed to a curved line. I mean, think about it. Which one of these shapes do you think would be easier to draw and get right? As you can see, I don't have much of a drawing before I start blocking out the big shapes with thin paint. Now, when I say big shapes, I specifically mean dark and light. I'm breaking the face down into just two values, light and shadow. Thinking of the face like this first and just trying to map out the light and shadow shapes is so much easier than trying to dive in there and, draw an eye perfectly in the right place, in the right size. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see students make is they try and get too detailed too soon. I always say work big to small and easy to hard. Figure out the big, easy shapes first, because the more of those you find, the easier it will be to find the smaller shapes and eventually those small details that make up the features of the face and give you the right proportions. I also find this very helpful when I'm thinking from light and I can't use a proportional divider to get measurements. Being able to squint my eyes and simplify a face just into light and shadow makes it much easier to draw in. I feel like I can quickly lock in the position of the head and the placement of the big shapes. And that's a big reason why I like working this way. It's because it doesn't rule off painting from light. Using a grid or tracing or any of that stuff, you really run into a lot of problems if you want to paint from light. And in my experience, painting from light is the best way to learn. Yeah, you can't always do it. You have to work with photos, and that's fine. But I just highly recommend not choosing a way of working that is going to kind of cut off that possibility of learning. I mean, I'll fully admit, I lean too hard on, using grids and measurement and tracing. And when I went and started to try and paint portraits from life, I struggled a lot. And I did not like that. I was like, whoa, this is a reality check on my drawing skills. Like, I really need to work on that. And since at this point I'm using thin paint and everything's so simple, it's no big deal if I mess up, which I did in this portrait. I got my proportional divider and checked a few measurements that looked off and realized I needed to adjust things. So I just got some paper towel and wiped off the area that needed adjusting and redid it. See, that's another great thing about working this way is that since things aren't super detailed and super measured, I'm always keeping the drawing part of my brain on. Like, I'm always comparing and judging my drawing and stepping back and making sure things are right. A lot of times before when I would trace or grid, I would think, oh, figured out the drawing perfectly, it's locked down, don't need to worry about that anymore. But, as you paint, you kind of lose the drawing and things move a little here and a little there, and before you know, you get to the end, you're like, wait, why is this all off? I got it figured out perfectly on the drawing. You know, there would be a lot of times when I would trace the drawing, and by the end of the painting, the proportions would be off because I thought I had it locked down, and I just wasn't paying attention throughout the process. And just, you know, a little move here, a little move there, and a little move there, it adds up, and things can look really off by the end. You know, this idea of getting a drawing by using simple value shapes is so helpful, which is why I made it the first exercise in my portrait course. You know, not only is it going to help you see and identify values better, but it's also just going to make the drawing part of a portrait a lot easier. You know, if I said, hey, draw this, it could be kind of intimidating. But if I said, hey, draw this, a lot less intimidating. Now, as I start to paint here, I'm not going to jump in and immediately start painting the eyes or the nose or the mouth. I'm just going to think about the big shapes. Remember, looking big to small, easy to hard, and also thin to thick. You know, when I start out, this paint is going to be relatively thin. You know, that's thinned out with paint thinner. I like to keep it thin because I know I'm going to need to move things and paint over things and adjust things. And if you get too thick of paint on there too quickly, it can make that a little harder. But I like to think of this as carving the paint. You know, I'm not going in there with a thin brush and drawing lines.